uniform. Ada logo dekat dada kau. Ada Allah, ada Muhammad. Kau tak malu ke? Sedap kau makan rasuah selama ni.
Aku tak pakai rasuah. Kau nak tahu apa yang lagi buruk? Polis bunuh orang.
Kau tuduh aku ke? Tak ada bukti. Tuduhan kau tu tak ada nilai kat mahkamah.
Rule number 1, jangan percaya polis yang tak makan rasuah.
Yang, tahun ni raya kita balik kampung saya.
Nani?
No! Tak nak! I nak balik kampung I.
Apa kata kalau kita
Bawa family kita raya sini!
Good evening. You are tuned in to AWANI Tonight with me, Cynthia Ng. An Israeli man who was arrested with several firearms at a hotel here will be charged in court tomorrow. Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Razaruddin Hussein says the man, identified as Shalom Avitan, will be brought to the Kuala Lumpur Sessions Court to face the charges.
Razaruddin had said police were still investigating Avitan's real motive for possessing the 6 firearms. A total of 16 people have so far been detained in Johor and Kuala Lumpur in connection with his arrest. On Monday, a Malaysian couple who allegedly supplied Avitan with weapons were charged with illegal possession of firearms. Avitan had entered Malaysia on March 12 on a French passport. He claimed he was in the country to assassinate a fellow Israeli.
Dewan Rakyat Speaker Tan Sri Johari Abdul has requested the Egyptian government to consider opening its borders for aid deliveries to Palestinians in Gaza. According to him, some of Malaysia's food and medical trucks have been stranded and unable to enter the area for up to 3 months. Johari had conveyed the request to Egyptian ambassador to Malaysia, Ragai Taufik Said Nasir, at the Speaker's Hari Raya Open House in Kuala Lumpur. According to MPs who recently visited the Egypt-Rafah border, he said around 60 to 70 food and medical trucks sent by Malaysia were still stranded. United Nations aid agencies and other humanitarian groups have warned of a major famine in the Gaza Strip, particularly in the northern regions. They have said Gaza needs at least 500 to 600 trucks of humanitarian aid and commercial goods a day to keep up with the dire situation in the besieged territory. The Sarawak-owned airline is expected to commence operations in 2025. State Premier Tan Sri Abang Johari Tun Openg says that the process of acquiring Mas Wings Sdn Bhd by the Sarawak government is expected to be finalised by the end of this year. He said the acquisition has been agreed upon in principle by the Malaysian Aviation Commission (MAVCOM), the Ministry of Transport and the Malaysian Aviation Group (MAG).
Apa yang perlu sekarang ialah hanya teknikal saja. Saya rasa mungkin bulan 8 ataupun selewat-lewatnya hujung tahun selesai. Dan kita insya-Allah akan mempunyai syarikat penerbangan kita sendiri 2025.
He added that the airline's name has been decided but will not be announced yet. In November last year, Sarawak Deputy Minister of Transport, Datuk Dr. Jarib Susil, revealed that the Sarawak state government was conducting a due diligence on Mas Wings in preparation for the acquisition. Kuala Lumpur has made progress in the latest 2024 Smart City Index, climbing 16 places to secure 73rd place out of 142 smart cities surveyed globally. This is a significant improvement compared to last year's ranking of 89th. Zurich retained its top position for the 5th consecutive year in the study conducted by the Institute for Management Development's Smart City Observatory. Oslo came in 2nd and Canberra 3rd. Geneva secured 4th place while Singapore claimed 5th according to the study's findings. The report showed that Kuala Lumpur was doing well in specific areas like online scheduling and ticket sales, which have made public transport easier to use. Businesses in Kuala Lumpur are also creating new jobs with easier access to online job listings. However, the 3 most urgent priorities that respondents were most concerned about were affordable housing, road congestion, and issues related to corruption and transparency. The government will look into speeding up the necessary facilities in the 3rd-class ward of Hospital Kuala Lumpur HKL. Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim says Health Minister Datuk Sri Dr. Zulkifli Ahmad will look into the matter and bring it to the attention of the Cabinet Ministers so that the process can be expedited.
Anwar, who visited patients who were receiving treatment in HKL today, acknowledged that the 3rd-class wards were a bit hot and crowded. The Prime Minister also said that there has been callings for a comprehensive study to be done, including the method of procurement of medicines so that they follow cost-effective methods. Anwar congratulated HKL for the performance of the hospital, which has received world-class recognition, and hoped that it will be an encouragement for all parties to enhance their efforts, charity and service.
Malaysia is preparing to introduce a new pension scheme with new public sector employees expected to contribute to the EPF, similar to their private sector counterparts. Joseph Cherian, Practice Professor of Finance at the Asia School of Business, recognizes the need for the move despite its potential unpopularity, citing the government's inability to continue shouldering the pension burden.
Let me just give you an example. I did a back-of-the-envelope calculation. Based on a 30 billion ringgit liability stream paid out every year, growing, let's say at inflation, let's assume it grows at the rate of inflation because it should actually grow at the rate of the aging population, right? People entering into the pensions, entering into the retirement system. The liability is as large as the EPF assets in place, which is about 1.3 trillion. Now, I don't have all the figures. Actuaries do the calculation more accurately. But just think about it. The amount I'm promising in future money, present value today, is about as large as the EPF. That's a huge liability. So we have to solve this problem because if not, everyone's going to be worse off. The retirees may not even get a payout. That's what's happening in the US. The social security system is a pay-as-you-go system. People are saying it'll run out of money by 2035 or 2040. Same issue, right? Because there may not be enough tax receipts or income on the government side to cover the pensioners who are getting the social security benefits. So this mismatch of assets and liability can be a problem for everyone, not just those who are retiring.
Joseph believes that the move is viable, but stresses the importance of the government handling this transition with care.
Those who are already in the system, you have to be fair because they've already contributed. I think the way co-op works, the civil services, you contribute some amount and the government contributes another amount, some other amount. You can't just tell them, sorry, you're all going into EPF. But even if they do it, they have to do it carefully because the ones who are about to retire, who have accumulated the most pension benefits, it's unfair to tell them now you're going to get X dollars when you were getting 3X dollars. So you have to calculate. There's people called actuaries who will calculate the sort of transfer cash value, the equivalent transfer cash value of what your accrued benefits would have been versus what it would have been if you put it in an EPF system. But you've got to do it carefully by cohort. The older ones, the ones who are about to retire, should get the most of the benefits. The ones who are earlier on will get a bit more of a haircut. The reason is because they've got a longer runway to grow their assets in the EPF system.
We'll go for a quick break. Stay tuned for more.
Daulat Tuanku.
sentiasa menang.
Ada pengkhianat dalam jabatan kita ni.
Rule number 1, jangan percaya polis yang tak makan rasuah.
Welcome back. South Korea's liberal opposition scored a landslide victory in the country's parliamentary elections, retaining control of parliament. The Democratic Party and smaller opposition parties jointly won 192 of 300 seats in the National Assembly, falling just short of a supermajority.
Tuesday's results dealt a major blow to President Yoon Suk-yeol, with the vote widely seen as a midterm referendum on his tenure. His People Power Party has been struggling to push through its agenda in a legislature already dominated by the opposition. This comes amid a slowing economy, rising food prices, an aging population, and an ongoing doctors' strike. In the hours after the results were announced, People Power Party leader Han Dong-hun has resigned, while Prime Minister Han Duck-soo has offered to step down. The Democratic Party's recent victory means it would be able to fast-track legislation and push it through Parliament. It could also encourage its leader, Lee Jae-myung, who narrowly lost the 2022 presidential election to Yoon, to run for president again in 3 years' time. In recent weeks, Yoon had been criticized for appearing to be out of touch with the impact of inflation on voters, while separate allegations of corruption and abuse of power have been made against senior members of his party. Tuesday's defeat makes him the only president in South Korea's constitutional history to face an opposition-led assembly for his entire 5-year term.
Real estate tycoon Trong My Lan was sentenced to death by a Vietnamese court for her role in a $12 billion financial fraud case, the largest in the country's history. She was found guilty of embezzlement, bribery, and violating banking rules at the end of the trial, which took place in Ho Chi Minh City.
Lan and her accomplices were accused of siphoning off more than 304 trillion dong from Saigon Joint Stock Commercial Bank, or SCB, which she controlled through dozens of proxies. Investigators say Lan had appropriated large sums by arranging unlawful loans to shell companies from early 2018 until October 2022, when the state bailed out SCB after a run on its deposits. A family member has said Lan would appeal the verdict. Her trial was part of a campaign against graft that Communist Party leader Nguyen Phu Trong has pledged to stamp out for years. The crackdown has seen hundreds of senior state officials and high-profile business executives prosecuted or forced to step down.
Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh insisted that the death of 3 of his sons in an Israeli airstrike would not affect ceasefire talks in Gaza. Israel confirmed the killings, which came as talks in Cairo on a temporary ceasefire and hostage release deal dragged on with no sign of a breakthrough.
Speaking to Al Jazeera, Haniyeh suggested that the strike, which also killed 4 of his grandchildren, was an attempt to change Hamas's negotiating stance. US President Joe Biden said Hamas needs to move on the latest ceasefire proposal, which the group says it is studying. Israel's main ally, the United States, has in recent weeks stepped up pressure on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to agree to a ceasefire, allow more aid into Gaza, and abandon plans to invade the southern city of Rafah.
Despite increasing U.S. pressure on Israel over Gaza, Joe Biden has vowed that the U.S.'s commitment to defend Israel against Iran is ironclad. Fears are growing that an Iranian attack could come within days in retaliation for Israel's bombing of an Iranian consulate in Damascus, Syria. The attack killed 12 people, including 2 Iranian generals. Biden's pledge of support for Israel came hours after Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, repeated a threat to strike back at Israel over the attack. Israel has vowed to respond in kind to such a direct strike, raising the prospect of a regional war.
That wraps up Awani Tonight. I'm Cynthia Ng. Thank you for watching. Good night.